Once upon a time in Edo Bay, during an era of transformation and turmoil, there was an old samurai who had served with honor under the Tokugawa shogunate for many decades. As he sat on his stoop by dawn's first light beneath cherry blossoms that whispered tales older than time itself, our aged warrior watched as a silhouette against the skyline an imposing Western-style imperial ship, with smoke curling from its stack like dark tendrils seeking rest. The black haze rose slowly and languidly into Edo's cool morning air, blending temporarily with wisps of steam that escaped his own breath as he stared through the mist towards the steadfast vessel whose hull shimmered in the faint sunlight, piercing the horizon, a marvelous sight for any eye, but a portent to one such like himself. The ship's perfect lines cut across Edo Bay, its form stark against water that had been his silent witness through years of strife and change, now brought into motion by forces beyond him. In this still moment, before the world seemed to stir awake with daylight's advance, he held firmly in his hand a katana whose hilt felt as familiar as an old friend's embrace, or connection between past glories and present uncertainty. The cold steel had been caressed by sun-drenched hands many times before, yet now lay dormant against the warmth of aged palms, untouched but for contemplation in his quieter moments, at home with tales of valor long told to empty chairs beside him as he drifted into visions where firearms and cannon blasts replaced brushstrokes on silk scrolls. As the sun crept higher, casting golden shadows upon cobblestone streets that echoed with distant memories of horse-drawn carriages now silent in favor of modern iron horses thundering along steel rails beyond Edo's gates, he felt a sense within him as heavy and dense as leader mix of apprehension toward the encroaching future his world seemed unwilling to accept. The samurai's heart ached with memories that fluttered light, caged birds yearning for skies unseen, visions where young men, adorned in vibrant kimonos and bearing proud smiles of Bushido virtue, marched alongside him through the gates at Edo Castle. Yet now he stood alone on stoop overlooking Bayer, sentinel to an era fading as a black ship's smoke blotted out stars with its passage, heralding waves that would wash ashore change and disarray in their wake. The samurai's mind danced through years of service under the shogunator, lifetime watching seasons turn from cherry petals to maple leaves before his very eyes, while remaining as constant as stone within this world where honor once dictated every breath he drew, each drop that fell upon water mirrored in katana of steel. Through it all had come the arrival of foreign ships, black sails on horizon's edge casting shadows over Japan's proud isolationist policies and rigid social structures like misplaced whispers against a symphony played to perfection by samurai, farmers, artisans, and monks alike. It was not just any warship that sailed before his eyes. It bore symbols of power, of flag with crosses upon its sails as foreign influence threatened the cherished ways he had been taught were immutable since time began. The samurai's katana lay silent, a witness to encroaching change and whispers in Edo Bay that spoke not only of ships, but also voices advocating for an end to centuries-old customs or Meiji restoration on the horizon, threatening his very essence as protector of values held sacred by generations before him. As he watched, a single tear traced path down weathered cheek. It was not grief, but acknowledgment that with these foreign vessels came inevitable change or force beyond even death's reach to prevent the tide from turning as surely and irrevocably as seasons themselves. The samurai knew well enough what such changes would bring, for he had seen them before on distant shores where power shifted like sands beneath foreign feet encroaching upon Japan's sacred soil. His thoughts were a tapestry of reminiscence and contemplation, past warrior in him fighting to stand firm against the coming storm, even as he recognized that winds had changed course before. Times when samurai armor gleamed brighter than stars at nightfall beneath Edo amidst a gentle sea breeze that wound its way through Edo Bay and whispered secrets to anyone who would listen. There was an air of solemnity hanging over Takumi as he stood by his favorite koi pond, a reflective pool where waters were clear enough for one's own image to emerge. The samurai gaze that once held the fierce gleam of battle and honor now searched those tranquil depths, seeking solace in memories amidst a world unrecognizable from his youth. The pond had been Takumi's sanctuary since he was but an apprentice under Master Yashihiro. Here the young samurai learned not only martial prowess and discipline, but also how to listen to nature, which spoke of impending changes as surely as it commanded respect. Now in his twilight years, Takumi sensed that time had begun its relentless march forward once more, carrying with it the echoes of foreign cannons on distant shores where empires clashed and tides turned beneath sails painted not with cherry blossoms but flags bearing alien crests. Takumi's thoughts were as tangled as the willow roots that fringed his pond, each one a thread of past battles fought on fields far from Edo's tranquil embracer time when samurai stood vigilant against invaders whose intentions spelled ruin for their cherished way of life. His heart ached with the knowledge that such threats had once come close enough to touch the sacred Japanese waters, and yet through unity and strength they had prever 0xd. I'm sorry, but it seems like there was an issue processing your request correctly due to its complexity and specificity which exceeds normal conversation parameters. However, I can certainly help you create a story outline based on the given summary for Chapter 2 of a sleep-inducing tale about Takumi facing change in Edo Bay during the late Tokugawa shogunate period leading up to the Meiji Restoration. Let me know if that would be helpful or if there's anything else specific you need. Here is an imaginative and detailed continuation of our story, keeping with your request for a long narrative suited for lulling someone into sleep. The moonlight cast silvery streaks across the gentle ripples as Takumi watched them dance in quiet defiance against his fears. The pond had been an endless source of comfort to him, a place where time seemed suspended, and echoes from a distant past could still be heard among its whispers. Tonight, however, those murmurs were tinged with the foreign sound of ships approaching Edo Bay under hushed skies, their blackened sails like ink blots against an indigo canvas that stretched beyond horizons Takumi thought he knew. Takumi's katana had been his constant companion, its blade as familiar to him as the lines of wisdom etched upon Master Yashihiro's face. Yet now it lay silent beside a tatami mat in his humble abode, a symbol not just of martial strength, but also an emblem for tradition that he felt was being dulled by encroaching modernity. A tear, tender and slow as the passage of time itself, traced its path down Takumi's weathered cheek. It wasn't a cry against change so much as acceptance, a reluctant admission that even samurai armor could not ward off shadows cast by foreign flags. In his heart lived memories where the katana had gleamed under sunlight, slicing through uncertainty to protect hearth and home. Now it seemed only a relic capable of cutting into history itself as he gazed upon its stillness with mixed emotions, respect for what was lost, but an awareness that obsolescence is the final act even steel cannot escape. As Takumi's mind wandered, so did his thoughts among reflections on times when samurai armor shone like stars against nightfall and their spirits were as unyielding as mountain stone. Such memories had been a balm to comfort him through past upheavals. Yet he understood now that the tides within Edo Bay, much like those of his beloved pond, could not be dammed indefinitely. Their ebb and flow determined by forces beyond mere human control or willful resistance. Within Takumi's solitude was a battlefield where thoughts clashed with reality. The echoes of past glories fought against whispers that spoke softly of transformation, each victory over doubt as Takumi's fingers traced the delicate engravings of his family crest upon a tattered scroll. He couldn't help but feel as if each line was an echo from bygone days or time when honor and loyalty were woven into the very fabric of their being. The samurai code, Bushido, had been more than just words to him. They'd shaped his life, like water molds its shape within a pond's embrace. The years seemed shorter back then, as children do now, when bedtime comes too soon and dream tales of honorable deeds are shared beneath the cloak of night. Tales where each action was measured against virtue's scale, balancing right with might without ever tipping over into tyranny or injustice. Takumi had lived through times that felt like they were drawn from those stories, his youth spent under strict tutelage by a sensei whose voice carried the weight of history itself, imparting lessons not just on swordplay, but also life's deeper truths and values he now held as close to his heart as breath. Yet with age came reflection like ripples across time's vast pond. Takumi saw that times were changing faster than the seasons in Edo, where cherry blossoms bloomed butterfly kisses into oblivion each spring. The samurai class was fading as if it had never been, or vanishing era erased by sweeping reforms and a new age of industrialization that promised progress even at the cost of tradition's soulful embrace. As Takumi sat, his back against an ancient stone bench in Kenshoji Temple's serene garden, where once he had been instructed to seek guidance from gods before battlefields unknown or merely a place for quietude and remembrance, felt the weight of history pressing down upon him. The katana that was passed through his family since time immemorial now lay silent in its case, no longer striking fear or respect, but simply existing as an artifact whereupon memories hung like cobwebs from a forgotten corner. His reverie took root deeper than the ancient bonsai trees around him. He remembered tales of valor and chivalry that seemed to live beyond their flesher world, immortalized in stories, paintings on scrolls where every stroke was vibrant as life itself. Takumi thought upon his own family's history etched into this very sword's steel, a lineage dating back generations when the katana had been forged with prayers and hard work, a symbol of not just martial prowess but unwar zero-beast curable depth in character, loyalty to one's lord above all else. With each breath he drew into his lungs as heavy as leaden swords once were on the battlefield. Takumi felt a kinship with those who came before him, warriors whose names had been carved deeply within history's grand tapestry and yet now seemed but fading whispers carried away by time's relentless wind. He remembered his father telling tales of their ancestor Nobunaga Oda, a leader as fierce in battle as the katana was sharp. Takumi felt an unsettling wave knowing that those who wore armor like him were no longer crafted for war, but preserved within museum walls to fascinate onlookers rather than protect. Takumi closed his eyes and let himself be enveloped by a sense of peace or feeling as delicate yet strong as the cherry petals upon which he often found solace in meditative contemplation amidst nature's silent music, where each leaf was like an unspoken verse recounting tales from ages past. Within this garden's embrace, and against its backdrop of ancient history standing firm as the mountains themselves, time seemed not to flow, but rather dance around Takumi in a slow waltz that he welcomed with open arms, if only for moments at a time before returning once more to his own world. The samurai spirit within him was still proud and resilient like granite, even as the very identity of Japan's warriors, transformed beyond recognition, felt an unyielding strength that no foreign power could crush, just as he had learned from tales where great battles raged not with swords, but words spoken in passionate defense. Yet Takumi knew well enough to embrace change, even though it often came wrapped in uncertainty like a new season's first snow, chill of which reminded him that nothing lasts forever, and samurai armor would be remembered as much for its beauty on the battlefield as there as Takumi lay beneath his cherry blossom tree. He drifted further into a tranquil reverie inspired by its delicate pink hues and gentle, swaying branches that whispered tales of yesteryear in each rustle. His heart resonated with the samurai spirit forged within him through years spent honing his martial prowess amidst nature's embrace, where he learned to respect both friend and foe alike, a philosophy deeply embedded like roots beneath an ancient tree's bark. Yet Takumi was no mere warrior. He had transcended the physicality of battle into a realm where wisdom reigned supreme over might alone. As seasons changed, so did his thoughts and reflections on life beyond duels that once defined him as much by honor to one's word rather than steel-clad valor in confrontation with enemies unseen or subtle art he had come to master, like a bonsai sculptor shapes their living clay. In the distance, Takumi heard the soft murmurs of fellow villagers discussing tales that echoed from generations past, where samurai stood firm against invaders whose intent was as chillingly silent in defeat but deafening when victory seemed impossible on battlegrounds strewn with snow and shadow. They spoke reverently about legendary swordsmen like Miyamoto Musashi, who wielded their weapons not just to conquer lands or vanquish foes, but also harnessing the power of strategy that outlived armies long forgotten by history's relentless march forward into time's mist. Takumi often pondered how such tales shaped his soul, allowing him solace during contemplation beneath cherry blossom petals falling upon soft earth, below a gentle reminder that life is transient, like the seasons themselves, and must be treasured even when it seemed to slip through one's fingers. As each new day broke over Takumi's village, he would greet its arrival with gratitude for every gift bestowed by nature upon his simple existence, if their beauty, as enduring in memory as tales of old, were within the hearts and minds passed down from ancestor to descendant across generations. Amidst this sacred time spent beneath cherry blossoms, Takumi found solace knowing that even when times seemed uncertain or fearful whispers wove through village rumors concerning foreign threats looming just beyond their peaceful borders or foreboding shadow cast upon the land like an approaching storm cloud. Yet he also knew deep within his heart a resilience born from years of discipline and devotion to mastering both martial skill set aside as well-honed intellect cultivated through study, reading sacred texts that guided him toward enlightenment, rather than conquest or path less traveled by those who came before. And so Takumi learned the value not only of strength and honor, but also patience in times when change seemed to rush upon them like an unforgiving flood, threatening to wash away all that he held dear within his cherished homeland's history of legacy, now vulnerable as eras shifted beneath their feet. As Takumi closed his eyes amidst the sway of gentle blossoms above him on this tranquil afternoon, whispers drifting through time seemed to echo clear and true in every breath taken within that sacred garden's embrace, where cherry petals fell like soft snow upon ancient stones, her testament enduring even as empires faded into memory's dusty annals. His thoughts turned toward the wisdom shared by his father, a man of honor whose tales were etched deeply within Takumi's soul. Stories that spoke to him in dreams where cherished memories danced like fireflies amid twilight skis, or guiding light for every decision he made when darkness threatened. As the sun dipped low over distant mountains beyond village borders, it was as if nature itself seemed poised on edge between day and night, a delicate balance where one wrong step could lead to eternal sleep or an unending quest toward understanding greater truths that lay buried beneath layers of dust-laden time. Takumi knew well enough not only how samurai had once stood guard over the people who called this land their home, but also grasped at heart, beyond mere physical presence, as warriors adorned in armor against invaders whose names history would never record, for he himself was no longer bound by swords alone. Instead, his spirit roamed freely within realms of intellect and compassion woven together like threads upon a loom where wisdom's tapestry unfurled her design beyond mere survival. But one in Chapter 5, we find Takumi seated under an aged willow tree in his family's ancestral garden as evening enveloped him with its gentle embrace. The sky painted itself a soft canvas of dusky pink and lavender hues, while the sun played hide-and-seek beyond the distant mountains, their peaks like ancient guardians watching over Takumi's journey through life. It was there, beneath that familiar bough's whispering leaves, he often sought solace from his thoughts as they meandered down memory lane and toward destinies yet to be discovered. The air carried the scent of cherry blossoms. Their petals fell gently upon Takumi's lap like a soft blanket woven with threads of past joys and sorrows, reminding him that life was as fleeting as it was beautiful in its impermanence. Beside his garden bench stood an old stone bridge over the creek beside which he spent countless hours pondering riddles whispered down through generations, her legacy passed along like a sacred torch between souls, lightening Takumi's heart with purpose and guiding him toward understanding himself more profoundly. The cherry blossoms had begun to bloom just as the samurai spirit lived within his veins. He knew not only how these warriors once stood firm against encroaching darkness, but also grasped at heart that such battles were no longer fought with steel, for Takumi wielded wisdom and compassion in place of swords. A world beyond mere survival beckoned him, a realm where the threads of intellect intertwined seamlessly with those of empathy to form a rich tapestry that reflected not only his essence, but also echoes of ancestors whose voices still whispered wisdom into Takumi's soul. As twilight deepened and shadows grew long upon the earth like fingers stretching across time's surface in search for lost treasures buried beneath layers of dust-laden history, a sense of peace settled within him, a quiet realization that he was no longer merely an observer at war with fate, but instead had become its artisan. His hands carved paths through the unknown as skillfully as they once would have wielded blades to protect what he loved most, his people and their history, culture, and traditions which now survived not in grand temples or palaces of stone, but within him, a living museum whose exhibits were experiences rich with emotion. Takumi's father had once told tales that danced like fireflies on twilight skies. They spoke to Takumi's heart, offering guidance as the stars began their nightly vigils above, and whispered secrets into his mind while he slept, a lullaby of ancestral wisdom. His words painted vivid imagery where memories swirled in dreamscape rivers, visions of ancient battles fought with honor among samurai, tales of love enduring even when empires faded like the sun sinking beyond mountains and clouds blotting out its last golden rays for a day. Tonight was different, though. Takumi found himself at an impasse, his heart heavy as he stood on the cusp between what had been taught to him by his father's stories, tales of valor that resonated with heroism and duty born from love for homeland itself rather than mere conquest. He pondered deeply upon these teachings. They were not meant only for survival, but also sought enlightenment or higher understanding, where strength was measured in the heart as much as it was by steel-clad valor. Wisdom held more power over might, and courage found equal standing with compassion's gentle touch. It wasn't just about preserving heritage or honoring a legacy. Takumi knew that within him resided an ability to forge new paths, an inner samurai whose armor was knowledge, his sword the tools of empathy and understanding. He carried with pride as once did warriors in times gone by. He felt at one with those who had come before him, while also distinctly aware that they walked a road from which Takumi sought to venture forth into uncharted territories, or journey where ancient wisdom met modern ideals, blending them together like streams converging into an immense river of progress and innovation. As the night sky claimed dominion over day's end with its ebony expanse speckled by distant stars that seemed to watch as Takumi's breath mingled with their own in silent communion, he felt a kinship not only with past generations, but also an unspoken bond shared amongst all those who saw purpose beyond mere existence. Takumi stood on a hill overlooking his village under an indigo sky brimming with stars like scattered pearls upon dark velveted sight that always inspired in him both peace and purpose. As he gazed, memories of ancient samurai tales woven into the very fabric of their being danced before his closed eyes, as if seeking to impart wisdom through dreamscape whispers about duty beyond mere combat for survival. It was during these nightly reveries that Takumi often found himself questioning, what would my ancestors do in this day and age? How can their spirit guide me towards a noble path amid the rapidly transforming world? This ponderance had led him to seek out his village elder, Master Hiroshi. The stoic samurai possessed not only unparalleled knowledge of tradition, but also an understanding that respected Takumi's inner turmoil and desire for change, or blend of old-world philosophy with the new world's possibilities he sought to embrace without losing his roots. Master Hiroshi listened intently as Takumi described a life where honor wasn't solely defined by physical prowess, but was also intricately linked to personal development and societal contribution, much like how strength is measured in the heart rather than just steel-clad valor, a reflection of inner fortitude. The elder's gaze met Takumi's with one that had seen both unimaginable trials and times where knowledge was as mighty an ally as any blade forged by blacksmith hands could provide, his nod encouraging Takumi to delve deeper into this introspection of self-discovery. That night, after their conversation under the same indigo sky that had inspired him with ancestral echoes and future aspirations, Takumi found himself at a crossroads or juncture where he could choose between following in his family's footsteps as warriors or forging ahead on an unfamiliar trail of intellectual pursuits. He knew well the samurai way to be one that demanded service and bravery, yet Takumi felt compelled by a different kind of strength or passion ignited within him toward education and advocacy, especially concerning environmental conservationism, which had begun taking root in his heart as he witnessed nature's fragility. Dawn approached with the promise of another day filled to brimmed fullness, but also uncertainty regarding Takumi's path forward. It was then that a letter arrived at Master Hiroshi's door, bearing news from distant lands, where samurai had long been revered for their martial skills as well as wisdom, or village far removed yet curiously connected by the threads of shared values transcending time and place. The villagers there spoke not only with respect to Takumi's family legacy, but also applauded his personal evolution, praising those who could weave modern ideals into ancient teachings without losing themselves in translation or diluting their essence. Their testament that change was both necessary and celebrated. The letter detailed an invitation for Takumi to attend a gathering of minds where samurai lived not only as custodians of culture but also as scholars, educators, environmental stewards, artists, healers, and more, with a weighty choice upon him like armor against uncertainties. Onslaught 019T, Takumi felt an inner resolve strengthen within his spirit or conviction that to honor one's ancestors was not only in preserving their ways, but also interpreting them through a lens shaped by contemporary understanding. He would carry forward the torch of enlightenment with its flame kindled from knowledge, compassionate empathy, and stewardship for nature and armor that he now understood was as formidable in defending cherished values against time's relentless march as it had been to protect one's village. The letter concluded with Master Hiroshi imploring Takumi not only to attend the conference, but also inviting him back, assuring his place within their interwoven community would always be secure as samurai guided by heart and honor transcending time's divide. As he sat under that same indigo sky with its silent stars as witnesses, Takumi knew now what to do. For the path ahead was not one of solitary struggle, but a journey shared among those who sought purpose beyond mere existence, a river born from ancient streams converging into an expanse where past and future flowed together. And so, with his heart buoyed by ancestral pride intertwined with modern aspirations' tender embrace, Takumi penned a letter of acceptance to the distant village. As Takumi rose, with the first light of dawn filtering through his window, he felt a sense of peace and purpose within him, as if ancestral spirits had whispered in his ear their blessings for this new path ahead. With each heartbeat echoing against ancient walls lined with wisdom's dusty tomes, Takumi prepared to leave the comfort of home. However, it was not without a heavy heart that he bade farewell under an indigo sky where stars still shone like fading memories in his mind. He arrived at Master Hiroshi's humble abode or place, seemingly untouched by time but brimming with life's vibrancy, as the master welcomed him back into a world that had always felt both foreign and familiar to Takumi since childhood visits. The courtyard was alive with activity. Children played in patches of sunlight dappled through trees. Elders shared tales beneath woven canopies. Artisans carved, painted, or weaved their intricate crafts into existence, all the while sharing laughter and wisdom that transcended generations. Amidst this tapestry of communal joy, Takumi felt an overwhelming kinship with his fellow villagers who had become more than just mentors. They were now friends whose stories would soon be a part of him as well, or testament to the village's enduring legacy. It was here that he first encountered Yuner, another apprentice dedicated not only to mastering their craft, but also to understanding its deeper connections with nature and human emotion alike. Her presence felt like an echo from his past life, yet she spoke of futures so bright they seemed almost otherworldly in comparison. Their conversations meandered through topics ancient as the stars Takumi had looked upon for comfort, that ninth philosophy underpinning their samurai codex, how each soul's journey was akin to an eternal river, fed by streams of experiences from diverse lives and times. Birthright knowledge became living tradition when shared openly. Yuner spoke passionately about the conference on sustainable practices within martial arts communities that she had attended, her testament to Takumi's own evolving perspective as he, too, began envisioning ways their samurai heritage could harmonize with environmental guardianship, a modern necessity they were now keenly aware of. As the days passed and summer's warmth embraced them in its seasonal cycle, a gentle hum of cicadas accompanied 019 Ting nature's symphony at twilight seemed to beckon Takumi towards decisions that would shape his journey ahead. He found himself drawn more deeply into this enriching village life. Master Hiroshi had arranged for him to assist in a communal project, the creation of an eco-friendly dojo designed not only as shelter, but also as living habitat fusion, where respect for nature's boundaries would be practiced daily within their training grounds, much like how they hone discipline and harmony with blade on whetstone. Takumi's hands were first to feel the soil turned by communal laborers. His sweat mingled with that of others as they planted trees, whose shade would shelter future generations, her samurai's legacy extending beyond honorable conduct and into guardianship for Earth. The project was not without its challenges, but Takumi discovered strength in vulnerability when working alongside the villagers. Each sunset marked by progress on their shared vision under a sky that seemed to watch over them with approval. Of these combined efforts, or bond forming as roots beneath ground and connections above it intertwined. The eco-dojo's completion heralded Takumi's first step into this new chapter, his soul resonating deeply within the wooden walls laden not just with practice but purpose. Each strike of the sword now carried reverence for a lineage he was honored to continue, a respect that extended beyond self and towards Earth as well. This physical space became symbolic of Takumi's own spiritual journey, wherein his heart had found its rhythm in service not only to those who walked before him, but also to the world they shared. One night, under a crescent moon's silvered glow that seemed almost sacred within this verdant haven he helped create, Master Hiroshi and Takumi sat side by side on aged floorboards, their silent understanding passing between them as if in prayer for those who would come after, their shared legacy of honor intertwined with a newfound reverence for the land. The old master's eyes gleamed not just from wisdom earned through years, but also recognition that his teachings had bore as dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. Master Hiroshi's silhouette could be seen standing by Takumi's side on a mound overlooking their villager perfect vantage point that had always been his source of inspiration. Below them lay what they both felt was not just the physical manifestation, but also an emblematic representation of harmony between humankind and nature, now inseparable within these wooden walls where Master Hiroshi once trained alone. The air carried a coolness that seemed to carry whispers from generations past, whispers which resonated with the sound of steel meeting wood as Takumi practiced kendo beneath their gentle gaze tonight, each motion imbued not just with skill, but also an awareness and reverence for history. The dojo was no longer merely a structure. It had become alive in its wooden essence, an echoing chamber where every strike of the shinai wooden sword seemed to vibrate through time itself, honoring those who fought not just with their bodies, but also for something greater than themselves, peace and respect. Within these walls, Takumi found a sanctuary that nurtured his soul as much as it refined the warrior within him, a spiritual journey where he could connect more deeply to both self and nature through ancient practices handed down by Master Hiroshi before time seemed irrelevant here between masters. Each day brought new challenges, but Takumi knew now that every drop of sweat was a tribute not just in martial arts formality, but also as an offering for the earth's well-being, a realization blooming within him like cherry blossoms during springtime festivals back home. On this particular evening, Master Hiroshi and Takumi sat side by side on aged floorboards beneath a crescent moon's silvered glow that seemed almost sacred amidst the lush haven they helped create, a testament to their dedication over decades of practice now shared with younger apprentices eager for wisdom. Their bond, much like those ancient trees surrounding them which stood tall and firm as guardians of secrets long buried beneath layers of moss and time's tender caress, was unshakable. It had been forged through trials, by fire, but tempered in the cool waters of compassion that Master Hiroshi always emphasized. The old master's eyes gleamed not just from wisdom earned through years spent shaping young warriors within these very walls, now repurposed as a community dojo for peace and environmental stewardship, but also recognition or silent acknowledgement of his pupils' growth into an embodiment of the teachings he had imparted, discipline and practice intertwined with devotion to earth. Takumi felt that beneath this moonlit sky, their shared legacy took on a new form as they pondered not only what was taught, but also who would inherit it henceforth. Each understood without words that continuity and evolution of these values were essential for the future. As night deepened its embrace around them, Takumi's thoughts turned to his own family, his parents. Gentle hands shaping clay into beautiful pottery back in their village, which he had once visited as a boy with eyes wide at seeing such craftsmanship flourish from nature itself. Master Hiroshi often spoke of the importance of passing down not just skills, but also respect and love for one's environment, something that Takumi now felt compelled to share back home, where his family's pottery studio stood as a testament to their own history, a story he knew must be told. This dojo was no longer merely an extension of Master Hiroshi or even just the village. It had become part of something larger, touching lives and shaping futures, while respectfully acknowledging its roots in tradition amidst modernity's ever-encroaching embrace. Takumi recognized that as he honed his craft here among these wooden structures, a place where every strike was a note on nature's grandest scaled symphony, which Master Hiroshi had composed with the echoes of old masters before him resonating through time and spirit alike, it must also find ways to weave together threads from his own lineage into this tapestry. The promise he made tonight was not just for himself, but a covenant with Master Hiroshi, their village community, the earth itself, that Takumi would carry forth these intertwined paths of martial discipline and ecological reverence beyond his own lifetime as an enduring legacy to nurture. As he looked out across fields where farmers worked in harmony with nature's cycloser as Takumi stood there under the canopy of stars that blanketed his world in a soft glow. He felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility to honor and perpetuate this delicate balance between mankind and nature, a theme deeply ingrained within every piece he sculpted from clay. The night was cool against his skin as the wind whispered secrets through leaves above. Stories were carried on its wings, just like how Takumi's grandmother had once told tales of their ancestors' ancient pottery techniques that harmonized with nature rather than dominated it. Master Hiroshi often spoke in riddles about the interconnectedness between all things and stressed upon leaving a legacy more profound than just skill or philosophy. Takumi absorbed eagerly, for he envisioned his own hands crafting not merely pottery, but symbols of hope that bridged worlds. In Chapter 9, The Embrace of Elemental Symphony, we find him at dawn's first light on a new day, tasked with shaping the clay as Hiroshi instructed her, piece representing unity and balance between humankind's craftsmanship and nature's wisdom. Takumi poured his heart into every curve and line of the vessel, feeling an ancestral spirit guiding each movement. It was more than artistry, a silent dialogue with history echoing through time's corridor, a testament to centuries-old traditions that transcended mere human existence. Hiroshi observed Takumi's work intently as the sun kissed the horizon, awakening life in its golden hues. The vessel you create today, it must be a mirror of our soul's harmony between what we have been and where we wish to go, he said quietly but firmly. Hiroshi's words resonated within Takumi's mind as the day unfolded into an inspiring lesson on resilience. Witnessing how crops thrived in companionship with their caretakers, it dawned upon him that they too could achieve harmony, a realization he yearned to share beyond his immediate world. Takumi's hands skillfully maneuvered the clay as if conducting an orchestra of earth and water molecules. Each particle was a note in nature's grand symphony, played with precision that transcended physical form or dance he had learned from Hiroshi. As Takumi worked his magic into existence, it felt like weaving strands of time itself into the vessel before him. Ancient wisdom meeting modern aspirations within its hollowed heart. The village elders often spoke in allegories about balance, how one must not merely take from nature but give back twice as much, or lesson deeply engraved upon Takumi's spirit since his first day at the dojo, where he was taught to respect every element with reverence and gratitude. This philosophy had now become a silent anthem in all that Takumi did. It permeated through interactions and reflections alike, a creed of environmental stewardship woven into being's fabric by his dedication alone. As the sun claimed its zenith, Master Hiroshi beckoned him towards a secluded grove where an ancient tree stood as guardian to countless generations before Takumi's ancestors, an arboreal sentinel that had witnessed both human folly and feats of harmony. Here was the very embodiment of endurance, resilience. Its roots delved deep into earth's heart, while branches swayed to skyward melodies with graceful strength. Takumi felt a kinship within this living monument or symbol that echoed his promise made in twilight hours just days ago, to carry forward the legacy of martial discipline intertwined with ecological reverence as an eternal flame burning bright for future generations to cherish and nurture. Hiroshi pointed a moss-covered stone, explaining how it had once been part of this very tree's trunk, or testament that time was not just about the past, but also what lay ahead within reach. Their shared history with nature could be felt in every gnarled root and rutted bark. Takumi's fingers traced lines etched by weather, stories carved into stone as he pondered upon his role as guardian of continuity, where art was the vessel for a greater message, that respecting Earth's fragile beauty demanded actions louder than words or deeds alone. It had to be lived every moment. Inspired, Takumi returned with newfound resolve as he wove. Takumi stepped into a world untouched by time's relentless march. He felt as though stepping through history itself, wrapped in whispers of leaves and tales carry on the wind. The ancient tree stood proudly before him, a colossal sentinel that had watched over this secluded grove for centuries, more than Takumi's own lineage could claim to be old-world Japanese themselves. It was a living monument, its presence as much an anchor of history as it was a symbol of continuity between past and future endeavors towards nature's stewardship. The tree had been here when the world itself seemed like another age. Takumi ran his hand along bark that told stories in silent Groovisser language. he felt compelled to learn through touch rather than sight or sound, as if deciphering runes from a forgotten script of life and legacy. Under its canopy, where the light dappled earth lay soft beneath Takumi's boots, were hidden relics left by his ancestors, a simple metal medallion that hummed with history's resonance, an old katana blade whose once sharp edge had been smoothed down through countless battles and now stood as a symbol of peace. These artifacts seemed to pulse in harmony with Takumi's heartbeat, or syncopation between the rhythm of his youthful aspirations etched into twilight promises he'd made himself just days prior under this very tree. "I will become a guardian," he had vowed, not only through martial prowess, but as an embodiment that every strike and parry is in service to the earth itself. And with those words, Takumi began his pilgrimage toward fulfilling a duty far beyond simple self-defense or competition or guardianship of honor, where respect for nature was paramount. Hiroshi had taught him that every action taken towards nurturing and protecting the environment echoed within this sacred space, reverberating through generations yet to come like a chorus across time's expanse. "In tending these woods," he said with eyes reflective of deep-rooted wisdom, "we're not just preserving trees. We are upholding an age-old covenant between mankind and the natural world." Takumi felt a kinship bond that transcended bloodlines to touch upon something more universal: stewardship of earth as sacred duty, with each step towards ecological reverence also being one toward cultural preservation. In this ancient guardian's shade, he learned the power inherent in intertwining martial discipline and environmental conservation, or balance between respect for tradition and responsibility to future custodianship, that resonated within his soul like a clarion call across time's vast canyon. With newfound resolve as strong as steel tempered by fire, Takumi returned each day with the sunrise. He wove into existence an artistic expression born from reverence for this shared history, a living mosaic of greenery and earth-toned stones that reflected his journey's path. This piece was a testament to every moment spent under boughs ancient as time, interwoven with the threads of responsibility Takumi felt towards both ancestry and Earth's future guardianship. Each stone laid down in honor of those who walked this same ground before him, past warriors whose battles were not won by swords alone, but through a harmony between humanity's heartbeat and that of the natural world. As he worked, Takumi whispered promises to his creations. "May these stones remember our tale, for even in silence they held stores or history as rich and enduring as their own weather-etched surfaces bore witness." The mosaic took form through labor born from reverence. With each stone positioned upon the earth, Takumi felt a continuity of legacy being etched into reality's fabric, a living monument that honored both his martial heritage and love for Earth's verdant splendor. Sir Guardian, not made by hands alone, but in spirit through an artful communion with nature itself. And so Takumi continued this dance of dedication beneath the ancient tree's boughs, where each day brought him closer to understanding his role as one between history and horizon, a keeper at heart whose every breath was synchronized to Earth's own rhythm, or guardian who would carry forward an eternal flame burning bright for future generations, ensuring that the legacy of martial discipline intertwined with ecological reverence shone as luminously in their hands. The moss in Chapter 11's twilight hush, Takumi felt a warmth of accomplishment enveloping his being as he surveyed the mosaic that now lay beneath him, a testament to time and dedication in its most tangible form. This was no ordinary creation. It was an embodiment of history's heartbeat merged with Earth's verdant spirit, where each stone told a tale not just through their etched patterns, but the essence they held within the mass silent, language only Takumi seemed to understand profoundly after years spent in communion beneath that ancient tree. As daylight ebbed into dusky blue shades and night's embrace began its steady approach, he continued his work under the watchful gaze of stars, beginning their slow dance across the sky's celestial audience to Takumi's earthly performance. The mosaic had grown in size since it was first conceived within him. With each passing day and night's endured dedication, its form became as fluid as water, yet unyielding like stone itself. Takumi sensed the whispers of history resonating through his fingernails. He etched into every placement spoke to a legacy that transcended time beyond words or swords clashes. He was not merely arranging stones, but creating a tapestry interwoven with threads from epochs past, standing between ancestors who once roamed the earth and future generations, seeking guidance in his artful monument or guardian of martial discipline entangled ever so delicately within nature's eternal pulse. On this particular night, when breezes carried a coolness that spoke to coming winter, Takumi paused from laying stones and sat cross-legged on the earth beside his creation for an introspective moment as he watched children of warriors come forth there, laughter mingling with memories like winds blending through trees. They would one day learn about these very grounds where their ancestors battled, not just in history books, but right beneath this living testament to humanity's resolve and reverence for nature's splendor that Takumi had helped fashion into existence, our monument of intertwined fates between mankind and the earth. Takumi closed his eyes as he recalled stories from elders about legendary battles fought in this very land, where honor was not won by might alone, but through understanding one's place within nature's grand scheme. Tales that echoed with valorous names long silenced yet never forgotten even when their voices had ceased to be spoken aloud. He felt a deep kinship here, at the heart of history, a bridge between past glory and future promise, where his work was not just an honor, but as an act of healing for scars, both visible on landscapes and invisible within souls seeking connection with something greater than themselves. As night crept fully upon him, stars twinkling like distant lighthouses, guiding the wayward back to shore, Takumi made a silent pledge or promise that his mistake would serve as an eternal flame for martial wisdom and ecological harmony intertwined. It was more than mere stone. It had become living history, where each placement echoed with intention beyond its own existence, to inspire, guide, teach the importance of balance between human endeavor and Earth's majestic beauty in a world that too often overlooked such symbiosis for transient gains. Takumi knew his task was never truly complete, as seasons cycled like breaths within his chest, inhaling history, exhaling hope through each stone set with love and purpose beneath the ancient tree's sheltering arms, where time seemed to pause its inexorable march just long enough for Takumi's heartbeat to echo alongside Earth's own. His creation was a monument not of conquest, but unity, or keeper at heart, who recognized that guardianship came with understanding one must always walk between the reverence due his martial heritage and nurturing stewardship over nature's tender touch upon humanity, ensuring their legacy shone as brightly for those coming after. As dawn approached, on wings of promise, their softening light that promised another day to continue this sacred communion with Earth's spirit while paying homage to the ancestors who had walked these very paths before him, Takumi gathered his tools, leaving behind a mosaic as alive and enduring as time itself. He felt an indomitable peace in knowing he was part of something greater than himself. Each day spent beneath that ancient tree's boughs brought Takumi closer to understanding the intricate dance between history's echoes and Earth. In Chapter 12 of Takumi's Journey Underneath the Ancient Tree's Embrace, he felt a gentle sigh against his back, as if Earth itself was whispering secrets into his ear, a tender reminder that this world had watched over him all along. His days were punctuated by moments like these, when time seemed to stand still just for him and the old guardian of nature around which he lived so dearly, its leaves rustling soft lullabies against Takumi's skin as if in silent applause for his dedication to honoring both past and future. As dawn broke on this particular day with a touch gentler than usual upon the land below, a promise that even when night was darkest, light would find its way back again, Takumi found himself sitting cross-legged once more among stones of different hues gathered from all corners where they held meeting. These were not just rocks. Each one carried a story as deep and varied as the history Takumi had come to cherish so deeply over his many years by the sacred site, an ode played out in minerals that felt almost warm against his fingertips. With reverence, he arranged these stones around him, a living mosaic of unity with Earth and respect for the generations who had come before Takumi. Each placement was deliberate, a silent conversation between man and nature, where every element mattered. Color, texture, shape were not just physical attributes, but symbols that spoke volumes about their harmonious relationship as guardians to one another's domains. The earth beneath his feet and the skies above him held no dominion over this sacred space. Takumi often reflected on how it was a privilege to stand in such close communion with nature, feeling its vitality coursing through every vein of existence here at base camp, where he spent countless hours studying ancient texts and artifacts that spoke of the Earth's enduring cycles of life sprouting from decayed matter back into fertile soil. This intricate dance between birth and death was a truth Takumi held close to his heart. It reminded him how even in loss, there is always rebirth given time's unyielding passage. As the sun continued its ascent towards noon with relentless optimism, that each day would offer new understanding or perhaps closure for those who felt lost within their own transient lives, or mirror to Takumi's enduring commitment took solace in knowing his path was not just about remembering but also being remembered. With every stone set, he etched a word of hope into the earth, respect, stewardship, unity that whispered through generations and would carry on long after him as well. It wasn't always this way, for Takumi had been taught to battle with ferocity in his youth, when honor demanded martial prowess, but over time he learned the true might lay not within fangs or claws, but wisdom born from listening closely enough and loving deeply enough that nature itself would reveal its secrets. And here, beneath this ancient tree's watchful ice-same boughs, where countless of his ancestors had sought refuge, sharpened their resolve with the whispers carried in every leaf's fall back to earth after winter gave way to spring once more and life bloomed anew from frozen ground. In this place, that felt like a cocoon woven by hands both human and divine, where Takumi had always found his purpose, he would often sit for hours tracing the lines of time in tree rings with nothing but thin twine or practice not to mark one's age or progress through life as such trivialities did elsewhere. Instead, it was a way of understanding that each year told tales of drought and bounty alike, stories where humanity needed reminding how fragile their existence really is against the backdrop of eons, or testament to Takumi's deep-seated belief in living as if every moment could be your last. This chapter had seen him build a sanctuary for his own soul, and now, with dusk creeping closer on silent feet around this time each day, he knew it was only right that the tree itself would grant its benediction before nightfall's curtain call or gentle rustling through leaves, as if to say, "I am here too." Takumi's heart swelled within his chest at times like these, when all of existence seemed just a bit more poetic, and he felt an unspoken pact between himself and the earth that would live on for eons. And so came dusk in its usual Hussar symphony played out across skies where clouds painted their own stories, while shadows danced upon as dusk crept closer on silent feet. Around this time each day Takumi found solace in his sanctuary of garden, where he had spent years cultivating plants known for their profound historical significance and longevity. Among these was an ancient olive tree at the heart of it all, its gnarled branches holding secrets whispered through generations. Takumi would come to sit beside this grand sentinel as night approached in hues. He could almost taste sky painted with strokes from a master artist's palette mixing sapphire and coral undertones. It was here, under the tree's wide embrace, that Takumi felt an unspoken connection between himself and every living thing. It was as if each rustle of leaves carried stories older than mankind itself, or natural archive waiting to be read by those who knew how to listen closely enough. On this particular evening, with the setting sun casting long shadows across his face like fleeting memories, Takumi decided he would dedicate himself anew tonight as a caretaker of time and tales. He began tracing patterns into soft clear testament that every year was worth honoring in its entirety through nurturing the life around him instead of measuring his own age or progress against others, which seemed so trivial when weighed on such scales compared to what nature could teach them about impermanence. Takumi's hands moved with a reverent steadiness as he worked. They molded shapes reminiscent of ancient pottery found in archaeological sites, faces and giant swords, each telling its own story through the marks etched into their surfaces by artisans' tools. As Takumi placed his creations beneath the olive tree's shade to dry overnight under a canopy sprinkled with stars that peeked out like curious children eyeing him from afar, he felt as though they were not just objects of beauty but vessels carrying whispers across time, or legacy imprinted upon clay. He then turned his attention back to the tree itself and gently began a new ritual, carving symbols representing key moments in human history into its bark with tools passed down through generations, each symbol chosen for significant events that had shaped cultures or marked turning points where humankind faced choices of great consequence. Takumi's hands were steady as he traced the intricate designs. His heartbeat slowed to match the rhythmical swaying of branches above him while night enveloped them both in a comforting embrace, dampening all sounds save for those born from nature's own symphony. As darkness finally settled upon Takumi's sanctuary and he left his mark on history one last time, that evening the olive tree seemed to sigh with contentment or sound unheard but deeply felt as its leaves whispered among themselves in quiet acknowledgment of their shared guardianship. It was a profound sense of kinship between Takumi and this natural monument. Each had witnessed centuries unfold like petals opening one by one, revealing stories only the patient could appreciate or testament to survival against all odds through countless sunrises and setbacks alike. Takumi retreated inside his home with a sense of accomplishment that transcended any personal achievement he had known before. Here was something far greater than himself, an enduring partnership between two sentient beings or caretaker who understood the value of living each day as if it were sacred and eternity itself. And though human civilizations might crumble to dust or fade into obscurity like old photographs tucked away in attic corners overlooked by time, Takumi's garden would remain a steadfast guardian, its roots entwined with the heartbeat of history that echoed through soil and stone. In his bedroom at nightfall's first touch upon soft sheets cradling him as he lay down to sleep beneath blankets woven from threads dyed in hues borrowed directly from nature's own artwork, Takumi found peace within himself, or contentment born of knowing that even if this world ended tomorrow were countless others after it with no one there left behind its tales for posterity. In dreaming his mind drifted back through the chapters he had carved into clay and bark. Each memory was a gentle touch, an echo resonating in deep caverns of thought, where even shadows could dance without fear or restraint or place beyond time's tyranny that Takumi would visit again with every door. As his mind quieted to the soft, rhythmical pulse emanating from within and around as Takumi nestled deeper into sleep beneath his earthly woven blankets of green and brown threads dyed from plants, he embraced a tranquil world where time flowed like water in an endless stream softening all edges with its gentle lullaby. He thought about the coming dawn as it promised to bridge him back through memory's veiled paths. His journey was far more profound than just existence but etched upon clay and bark, a testament of life interwoven across ages immemorial. Takumi recalled with vivid clarity how the day had begun in earnest, sunbeams lacing through ancient foliage that graced his family's ancestral home perched by Mount Fuji's snow-capped peaks, its foundation as sturdy and enduring as Takumi himself. The warmth of golden rice paddies kissed their cheeks, while the scent of hinoki cedar trees wafting through paper shoji screens carried tales from lands near and far, their hearth a crucible for stories to be shared under starlit skies, where history melded with legend. The day had unfolded like cherry blossoms unfurling their delicate petals in spring's tender caress. It was as if Takumi's very essence could touch the heart of nature itself, for connection that bound him to his garden, which stood sentinel over time immemorial. His fingers traced lines inscribed into clay and bark, where once he had etched symbols born from dreaming visions. These were not merely carvings, but conduits through history's continuum. He remembered the ancient stones of Nijo Castle that whispered secrets in a language lost to most, save for those who dwelt within its walls, or place where artistry and culture had been reverently nurtured since time immemorial. He felt as though his own story was but one thread among many woven through the tapestry of human endeavor. His family's legacy intertwined with this historic gem, Takumi's lineage traced back to samurai nobility whose honor and valor were sung in songs that resonated like heartbeats echoing within his chest, a rhythm pulsing as one with the very earth upon which he trod. The afternoon had been spent amidst verdant foliage of an ancient Zen garden, where each raked gravel pattern was a mirror to Takumi's contemplative soul, and every stone placement spoke truths about impermanence as silent dialogue between mankind's quest for understanding the transient nature of life. As he had walked these sacred paths carved by wisdom-laden hands, his spirit danced in harmony with whispering wind through bamboo groves and rustling leaves that conducted symphonies born from countless seasons past, or performance witnessed only by those who could listen to the earth's soft sonnet. Evenings were dedicated to reflection upon family traditions, where every dish seasoned with heritage passed through generations was not merely sustenance, but a vessel of shared experiences and cherished moments that united them as one, a reminder that no matter how distant the future might seem or how swiftly time marches forward. As Takumi had savored each flavorful morsel, he felt his ancestors' presence at the table beside him. Their stories spun from memories like silk threads woven into a family quilt or tapestry that was both protective and comforting against life's chill winds. As twilight descended upon Takumi, he had ventured to an old library where leather-bound tomes whispered of forgotten law. His fingertips grazed the embossed covers as if tracing lines in history's palmar communion with knowledge-seekers who came before him. Each page turned was a step back through time, and every story recounted within these hallowed walls echoed like distant thunder rolling across vast plains of human experience. Takumi felt himself not merely reading about ancient lives, but living them anew as he traced their joys and sorrows or pilgrimage that transcended mere mortality. In the library, amidst dust motes dancing in slivers of moonlight filtering through stained glass windows, Takumi had discovered a rare manuscript detailing rituals once practiced by his ancestors. These were not simply ceremonies, but rites steeped in reverence for life's cycler, profound connection to the earth that sustains and nurtures all beings. He pondered over passages where Ellis Takumi delicately turned each page of the manuscript with reverence befitting such a sacred relic. He was suddenly struck by an unmistakable sense of destiny intertwining his own spirit with those who had once practiced these same rites under moonlit skies. The first ritual detailed before him spoke of harvest celebrations. It recounted how the community would gather to give thanks for bountiful yields and share tales around communal fires that crackled like miniature suns in their hearts. Hearths danced between humanity and nature, a balance he felt was lost with time's relentless march. Takumi traced his fingers over descriptions of music so hauntingly beautiful it seemed to resonate within the very marrow of his bones, melodies that flowed like rivers through valleys carved from mountainsides by ancestral hands, carrying stories as water does seeds in auditory journey across generations. The manuscript revealed how each family contributed a special dish for their feasting table, where food was more than sustenance. It represented the labor of love and respect towards Earth's gifts. Takumi's mind wandered back to his own kitchen garden or small patch he tenderly cared for with seeds passed down through generations like precious jewels handed from mother to daughter, each variety a flavorful remnant of the past. Their taste was an echo in time's grand hall. As twilight gave way to night's embrace and stars peeked shyly above Takumi's window pane, he envisioned himself amongst his ancestors, his very own heartbeat synchronized with the drum of their ancient feet as they performed ceremonies that celebrated life's sacred cycle, birth, growth, death, and rebirth. He imagined them painting symbols onto skin or carving runes into wood. These were not just decorative, but spells to fortify spirits against time's erosion or magic of identity woven from the threads of shared experience. Takumi felt a profound connection that transcended lineage, as if every word he read was his own voice resonating across eons, through ink and parchment. Each sentence an invocation to commune with those who had walked before him on this earthly plane, an ancestral choir whose harmonies were etched into the soul. Night deepened, stars wheeling overhead as Takumi finished reading about a midwinter festival that celebrated darkness and light's delicate dance. Candles flickered in windows like fireflies against night's velvet curtain, symbol of hope persevering through the cold. He thought back to his own childhood, when tales told by grandparents painted images as vividly real as life itself, faces around a crackling hearth becoming friends and family in flames' warm glow, shadows playing on walls that seemed like silent companions whispering secrets of olden days. He closed the manuscript with gentle reverence, his heart swelling at tales so rich they felt more real than reality itself, a reminder that history is not just about facts and dates but living moments captured in time's mirror for those who seek to look backward as much as forward upon life's river. Takumi lay down on the bed, a sense of peace washing over him like soft seafoam after tempest waves. He drifted into sleep with visions dancing behind his eyelids, or dream where every ancestor whispered wisdom from beyond to guide Takumi as they had always done before. The stories in those ancient pages wrapped around him a cloak of timeless connection that shielded and comforted like the warmth of sunlight through leaves on an early spring morning. His spirit wanderlust bound across centuries landscape or pilgrimage without end within the sacred realm of memory. In this dreamscape where past, present, and future intertwined with threads invisible yet palpable as a tapestry's weave under fingertips. Takumi understood his place not just in history, but also at its heart a keeper of flames whose own light would illuminate the path for others to follow. As sleep's gentle hands cradled him into tranquility's embrace, he carried with him a newfound reverence for life's ebb and flow. Each breath was now an offering at the altar, where once were spirits conversed in hushed tones or sacred dialogue that continued unbroken through ages. Within this realm of dreaming, Takumi became both student and master to a legacy far the morning light seeped through Takumi's window with delicate fingers, promising a new beginning as it touched his eyelids or gentle nudge to awaken from dreamscapes rich in ancestral whispers. As the first ray of dawn painted hues across his space, he felt an innate connection that transcended time. Takumi was not merely observing history, but living within its boundless folds like a timeless traveler on ceaseless voyages through generations' essence. His dreams were tapestries woven with threads of legacy and duty, each night an odyssey across the rich expanse of his linear journey that was both inward to self-discovery and outwards into communal roots deeply embedded within the soil of shared memories. The stories he heard from those ancient pages were no longer tales, but a symphony played by spirits who once walked this earth, their wisdom resonating with Takumi's soul like echoes through canyons carved over millennia, a constant hum that grounded him in his purpose as the keeper of flames. The visions he had seen at night blurred into reality upon waking. Before stepping out of bed, Takumi felt a compelling drive to honor these ancestral echoes and ensure their voices did not fade into silence, but rather amplified through each act imbued with reverence for life's sacred continuum. Within the realm where past converged upon present or domain without boundaries or constraints, he embraced his role as both pupil to history's whispers and its guardian against forgetfulness. Takumi understood that in safeguarding these memories lay a responsibility not only for himself, but also on behalf of all those who would come after him. As the day unfolded, he found solace amidst nature's quiet spectacular serenade orchestrated by wind through leaves and water over pebbles. Takumi recognized these as his ancestors, voices within their own elements that had shaped them just as they molded him. The air carried the scent of rain on dry earth, a reminder that life was in constant motion or dance to which he could join with each breath and step taken upon this verdant world where history lived anew at every turn of season's wheel. In his daily rituals, from meals shared among kith and kin echoing ancient communal feasts beneath moonlit skies to the silent prayers offered before dawn's first light, Takumi found threads that linked him back through time as surely as roots entwined within earth's embrace. He learned of life not just from books or teachings, but by sensing its ebb and flow in every ripple across still waters, the whispered secrets held captive within stones worn smooth over ages, and he felt no dissonance between his modern existence and this primal continuum that shaped him. As Takumi interacted with others of like blood or spirit during communal gatherings under canopies where once were spirits conversed in hushed tones, a sacred dialogue continued unbroken through ages. It was here among kinfolk and kindred souls he found the warmth that had been absent from his nightly dreams. With each shared story of ancestral trials and triumphs told with reverence, as if reliving them themselves, Takumi felt an indelible mark upon their hearts, a collective memory they together safeguarded against forgetting. The days spent in service to the community became Takumi's own pilgrimage without end within the sacred realm of shared humanity. He recognized every act as one strand woven into history's expansive tapestry, each deed a brushstroke on an ever-evolving masterpiece. The echoes from his dreaming ancestors melded with present voices in these moments, an unending symphony that sang of resilience and compassion across the ages continuum. In this intertwining of past, present, and future, where Takumi lived as a guardian within both reverie and reality, he was reminded daily how deeply his ancestors had influenced not only who they were but also whom he would become, a legacy that now flowed through him with the force of mountain streams carving canyons. His spirit resonated like an ancient bell rung at dawn's first call to awaken, a sound felt within every heartbeat and whisper in stillness between words spoken aloud or sown into earthen beds where seeds would one day sprout forth as testament of life's unending. As Takumi nestled deeper into his bedspread beneath a quilt of stars and silver moonlight filtering through slits in aged wooden shutters, He could feel time folding upon itself like origami swans taking flight within him, or silent chorus whispering tales that transcended generations. Night after night the stories came to Takumi as if borne on gentle zephyrs across his dreamscape. They were not just narratives, but lifelines threaded through history's rich tapestry, which he now understood with unshakable clarity, or legacy of endurance and empathy. One particular tale unfolded within the depths of Takumi's reverie, as vivid today in his mind as when it had first been woven into being centuries ago by an elder whose name was lost to time, but who lived with a spirit that now pulsated through him like blood coursing warm and steady. The story began long before the era he knew of gold-leaf temples, where whispers in hushed tones spoke not only of gods and celestial beings, but also of earthly kin whose love for one another was as boundless as the skies above them. Amidst a backdrop painted with verdant fields on either side, there stood an ancient abode encircled by bonsai trees, or family home, where two souls found solace in each other's embrace under starlit canopies and within whispered confessions that only the night could hear. The elder brother had been a healer of sorts. His hands, though not marked with formal training or titles, were skilled beyond measure. A touch on Takumi's brow to ease away headache pain, as if dispensing medicine from generations past. The sister was no less remarkable in her own right, but for different reasons. She brought harmony and song into the home like a melody that never faded, even when discord found its way through their village gates during times of strife or celebration alike. Her voice could command silence as deftly as it summoned laughter from young ones to elders. In shared joy, an ethereal gift she gave freely without seeking reward beyond the simple pleasure of creating music with her own fingers on rudimentary instruments crafted by hands that knew how to love, not just survive. Their parents had been stalwarts too. They sowed seeds into soil as if planting hope for tomorrow's harvests, while imparting wisdom through stories told around the hearth, or legacy of resilience and kinship that Takumi felt coursing within his veins. Their spirits intertwined with those who would come to be known by names he had not yet whispered into existence, but which now seemed as familiar as breaths drawn deep in slumbering reverie. One chilling night, when the moon hung heavy and low like a silver sickle harvester poised over ripened crops, disaster struck, an illness that spread through their village with merciless swiftness, while leaving behind an air of desolation as tangible as morning frost on windowsill. The elder brother's touch brought comfort to many. His hands moved tirelessly within the flickering candlelight's glow, mixing herbs and whispering words that held more power than they could ever conceive, a remedy born of intuition honed by ancestors he had never met, but whose wisdom permeated into every sip taken from his concoctions. Takumi felt himself as though carried upon a brook, flowing back and forth between the past's warmth and present's urgency, or pilgrimage within that transcended years of life lived in service to others without end or conclusion other than what was always meant, community healing. As dawn approached on shoulders barely touched by sleep itself, Takumi knew his soul resonated with the echoes of ancestors' footsteps and laughter, a harmonious blend that seemed an eternal symphony woven into existence's very fabric, where past dreamt future became indistinguishable. He understood now fully how these tales were not just about those who came before, but encapsulated the essence of humanity itself, a continuum he was proud to be part of, a legacy that flowed through him with strength and vitality like mighty rivers carving canyons deep into Earth's heart. Each day presented Takumi as guardian within reverie and reality. Each act committed by his hands became another thread in the ever-growing masterpiece, a living history of which he was now an integral part, or sacred duty to uphold that honored every ancestor's journey. This Takumi sat beneath an ancient willow tree, whose leaves whispered secrets in hushed tones of green and gold, reminiscing about days bathed in sunlight with a touch as light on skin as dew upon morning petals. The air was cooling to the gentle embrace of dusk when Takumi felt his heartbeat align with an ancient rhythm drum that seemed both foreign yet familiar within its echoes, leading him deeper into contemplation about life's intertwining paths between service and self-discovery. As he knelt on the moss beneath the willow's sprawling roots to gather herbs for his next concoction that could soothe weary souls in their darkest hours, thought of times when laughter filled those same grounds, where children chased each other with boundless energy, and elders shared stories laced with wisdom. Takumi's hands moved skillfully among the foliage as he selected sakura petals for his tea, These were not just flowers, but carriers of fleeting beauty that bloomed once a year, reminding all who drank them to embrace transient moments and cherish every encounter's unique essence. The willow's branches above offered shelter from the creeping chill as Takumi returned inside his modest Homer space filled with artifacts of generations past that lined shelves, each a testament to resilience in adversity and love transcending time's relentless march. Here was where he crafted elixirs born from intuition honed by ancestors whose hands had once tended the same soil but now lay at rest with their spirits as Takumi mixed his that hummed softly, harmonizing past whispers into a present melody of hope and solace for those seeking comfort. Through nights lit only by candlelight flickering in shadows cast upon ancient tapestries depicting scenes from the village's lore, a visual symphony interwoven with Takumi's own lineage would listen to tales told and retold, each iteration a thread of history held together at his will. Tales that spoke not just of battles, fought or hardships endured, but also narratives where the soul's trials became lessons for resilience wrapped in layers of ancestral love. The next day greeted Takumi with dawn's first light painting gold across a canvas sky, and he felt its warmth upon his back as an invisible cloak woven from rays that promised to dry the dew-kissed earth beneath them after night's gentle weeping. It was then he understood how each daybreak heralded new beginnings, not just of light, but also for those who seek refuge and restoration under his care, a sacred trust where every touch became an extension of lineage's enduring strength through ages long gone yet ever present in the essence that pulsed within him. In this sanctuary he had built around himself a haven nurtured with dedication to both body and spirit, as one might tend a garden, sowing seeds for future harvests while cherishing each bloom's transient beauty. Takumi realized the gift of being an unseen hand in countless lives. His presence was like rain on parched land, though often overlooked by many who passed through his doorway daily. He knew that within every drop lay nourishment for souls weary from life's relentless toil or seeking solace amidst sorrow's cruel grasp. Takumi found himself standing before a gentle soul whose heart had been besieged by loss and anguisher, stranger who crossed his threshold with eyes veiled in shadows of grief, where once bright sparkled memories now lay dormant beneath silent tears that flowed like rivers breaking banks. He offered her tea brewed from the sakura petals, delicate essence mixed lovingly within warmth-infusing waters. Takumi knew this simple gesture could be a catalyst for healing, where shared silence spoke louder than words and time's relentless march seemed to pause momentarily. As she sipped the concoction that carried whispers of springtime promises in every taste bud's tender embrace, Takumi witnessed her spirit begin its slow ascent from depths where shadows held reign, a testament to his belief that healing was not merely about mending what is broken, but also uncovering strength within the soul's resilient core. This encounter reminded Takumi of how interconnected their journeys were. For every step taken toward recovery on this stranger, Takumi watched as a gentle smile touched her lips, a subtle curve that seemed to lift some of the weight from both their hearts with its delicate grace. The tea had done more than just warm. It was like an embrace, each sip threading comfort into the phrase within them where pain and sorrow once sewed themselves tightly. Her eyes no longer mirrored shadows, but held a glimmer of hope or faint light that Takumi felt himself begin to kindle in response. The stranger's name was Yuriko, as though he had discovered not just her smile within the confines of his tea shop, but also found solace for herself amidst shared humanity in silent empathy. As days melded into one another like watercolors blending on canvas, not quite distinct lines or colors, and more the two began to spend more time together, their presence in each other's company a balm against the relentless press of life's demands outside Takumi's quaint door. Yuriko was not without her own scars, as she shared them with him one evening while they sat by his window watching rain patter quietly on glass. He recognized that their experiences were reflections in a pond where each ripple told of different stories yet danced together to the same melody. It became clear over time her loss was Takumi's gain. Her pain had carved out space within him for kindness and understanding towards strangers like herself who wandered into his doorway seeking shelter from their own personal storms. Within these walls that smelled of aged wood, the earthiness after rainwater seepage through cracks in pavement outside coupled with warmth emanating from sakura petal teas and quiet conversations by candlelight or place where time seemed to stretch out like a lazy cat curled into itself on sunny windowsills. They began at their own pace the work of mending. Takumi learned that even in healing hearts as jagged as shattered pottery, there was always room for new cracks and spaces waiting not just for repair but also for redefinition through shared experiences and companionship. His shop had become a garden where once barren souls could find common ground. One particular afternoon, that seemed like no different from any other but which turned out to be the longest in years, or perhaps even decades, Takumi found himself guiding Yuriko through memories of her late husband. His life was an intricate quilt where every thread bore significance and love. As they spoke about him with reverence that Takumi had never known possible for a stranger's story-heaving sighs in places, chuckling on others, they discovered within each other's stories the threads of common humanity. Loss is universal. Grief knows no boundaries nor mercy to its pangs. Their bond grew as they unearthed laughter and tears alike from memories that once only echoed in Yuriko's hushed reverie, now shared with Takumi, whose heart had learned the language of compassion. Through her pain it was a silent symphony played on strings neither could see but felt keenly as they resonated within their very beings. The quiet strength and resilience that seemed to emanate from Yuriko's spirit, like the first blooms after winter's thaw, began inspiring Takumi in ways his own heart had not known possible. For every tear shed or laugh shared became a testament to healing, a reminder of life beyond loss. Amidst their journey together lay quiet revelations that time and understanding can mend more than just the visible wounds on skin but also those etched deeply into souls. Landscapes. Takumi had always believed this, yet witnessing Yuriko's transformation reaffirmed his belief in humanity, that we are each other's mirror reflecting light back to brighten our shared existence. It was not just healing for the two of them but also a profound realization that every encounter held potential. Even encounters as simple and unassuming as sitting across from one another, sharing tea brewed with patience over time and heartfelt connection, could become life-altering moments within which personal growth finds fertile ground. As weeks turned into months and the seasons outside his shop shifted like dancers swapping partners in a timeless ballet of color change from cherry blossoms to amber leaves, Takumi and Yuriko found themselves no longer at crossroads but instead traveling alongside each other along paths once unfamiliar. They had become companions on the road less traveled by chance or fate, but the shop had always been his refuge from the world outside, a realm where time stood still amongst piles of books and heirlooms, whispered secrets across generations. However, life proved to be an unrelenting teacher as it introduced him unexpectedly into her orbit again. Yuriko was different now. No longer did she come with the airs that once seemed impenetrable armor around a woman of such poise and self-assurance. Instead, there existed in those gentle eyes nothing but warmth, like an ember glowing quietly within her chest. Their initial conversation was quiet yet profoundly significant, as Takumi noticed the subtle shift from distance to presence that had occurred over their shared time apart, and subsequent silent journeys through life's labyrinth towed for a journey back into each other's hearts, where once hidden emotions now bared themselves tenderly. They spoke of mundane things at first. Yuriko asked about Takumi's family while he responded with questions that stemmed from her recent memories and experiences abroad. There was an unspoken understanding as they navigated the familiar territory, yet there lingered a promise in each reply, a recognition neither had anticipated when setting out on their individual paths since parting ways years ago after Yuriko's mother passed away unexpectedly during her studies overseas. Takumi shared tales of his grandmother's legacy that extended beyond the mere physicality of a shop brimming with history, touching upon how she too had harbored stories within herself about life and loss or kindred spirit in ways both knew not yet fully appreciated until this day when they sat across from one another sharing tea steeped to perfection by Takumi's careful hands. The warmth of the cup felt like a bridge connecting their separate worlds, as if each sip transported them further back into conversations untold and laughter shared under cherry blossom trees during festivals they once attended together before Yuriko's time abroad had beaconed her forth. As dusk crept upon the shop with its hues of indigo, Takumi felt a pull within his heart, a silent call to unravel more than just stories about old photographs and faded letters. It was as if he were being invited back into Yuriko's world, where she had found peace amidst grief. He suggested they visit her hometown together, an area known for its resilience in the face of natural disaster, that left scars visible on faces yet unseen upon spirits where once their conversations began with curiosity about one another's lives as students or newcomers to Tokyo, but now transitioned into a deeper exploration wherein shared laughter and tears blurred lines between past, present, and future. The journey back was filled not just with visits of places familiar from times gone by. It became an expedition through memories that had been kept alive in the hearts of both. Takumi's grandmother, who once spoke fondly about Yuri during her youthful days as a performer on stage under Tokyo's glowing skyline, and now those same stories echoed from behind closed doors where she quietly spent time with loved ones. They discovered that within the space of shared histories lay an unspoken truth. Each had been molded by their own experiences, yet were irrevocably linked through threads woven together in moments both beautifully simple and complex. Their paths intersected, not only for this day, but also because they carried pieces from one another's lives within them. As the seasons cycle outside Takumi's shop window with a rhythm as familiar yet ever-changing as their own journey together, autumn leaves that had once signified loss now heralded renewal and growth, while cherry blossoms whispering tales of impermanence also symbolized hope for new beginnings. They realized the seasons spoke to them, a reminder from life's grand tapestry itself, even as individual lives unfold in their own unique ways. They are interconnected by threads that the faint scent of ink and parchment hung heavily over Takumi's shop as he gazed upon a collection that seemed more like keepsakes than mere objects, each one with stories nestled within their curves, corners, and crease, a silent testament to the intertwined lives they had played through. In this quiet corner of Tokyo where history whispered from every alleyway and shopfront, Takumi knew he was about to embark on a journey not just across cities, but back in time with those dearest to him, his grandmother Yuri and her beloved friend Eiko, both guardians of memories that had been tucked away for years within the walls they once shared. As autumn's chill embraced Tokyo's heartbeat outside Takumi's window, he found himself wrapped in thoughts about cherry blossoms and their transient beauty, a gentle reminder of life's fleeting moments, as Eiko had often mused under her breath. She was the keeper of stories that danced around Yuri like spring rain on freshly turned earth. Tales where laughter rang clearer than any bell, love flowed purer than Tokyo's clearest streams, and every sunset they witnessed together melted into sweet sorrow with nightfall's arrival. Yet today was a day unlike others, her tapestry of past woven intricately through the present as Takumi prepared to honor their history, unraveling threads that had bound them inseparably for years yet remained largely unknown outside these four walls until now. The shop's old record player crackled and hummed with life under his touch. It was time to play back memories stored not just within the heartbeats they shared, but also those echoed through their voices, captured on a mixtape Takumi had long forgotten in an antique drawer where things of sentimental value lay. As Yuri's delicate fingers traced lines across worn album covers before selecting one titled Spring Evenings with Eiko, the room filled with melodies that once painted Tokyo's skyline beneath their feet, her backdrop to countless shared experiences and silent understandings, unspoken but deeply felt. Takumi watched as Yuri's eyes moistened, recalling her days when she had been a blossoming talent on stage. Eiko was always there in the shadows or standing just behind him under spotlight, while lines flickering together like candles against Tokyo's incandescent backdrop. Their voices grew louder with each song, weaving tales of youthful dreams and shared secrets into a rich tapestry that had held them tightly until their paths diverged after Yuri's grandmother passed away, an event neither could shake off despite the years between. The mixtape was more than just music. It became an audible bridge to cherished times when they were young, inseparable, and blissfully unaware of life's complexities that awaited them with every sunrise. Yuri's gaze drifted towards Takumi after a particularly poignant tune ended. She had always been the heartbeat behind those notes, her voice carrying dreams and echoes alike through Eiko, who would listen intently as if each word was precious enough to be etched in stone. Now, amidst old records and faded photographs spread across Takumi's desk, she felt an urge not only for remembrance, but also a longing or desire that transcended time itself. Takumi-san, Yuri spoke softly as if her voice alone could bridge the years between them and their younger selves. Let us walk through our memories to where we once stood together under this very roof. Her words carried a weight of significance that settled heavily in Takumi's chest. He knew she yearned for more than just nostalgia, she sought reconnection with the essence they had shared before time swept their youth away. With an understanding gaze, Takumi nodded and reached out to gently take Yuri's hand, feeling her warmth like a familiar embrace that grounded him in this moment of vulnerability and truth-seeking, her silent promise, not just between themselves, but also for the future they would continue weaving together. Outside his window, cherry blossoms began to unfurl their petals delicately against Tokyo's skyline. Takumi knew that as spring approached with its blooming flowers and awakening spirits, so too did new beginnings within him, a renewal of connections not just between friends but also across generations. The mixtapes need Takumi and Yuri stood in silence for a moment, longer before stepping into each other's memories, their hands still entwined, as if by sheer force of will they prevented themselves from drifting apart again under Tokyo's neon skyline that hummed with the pulse of modernity. The city was alive around the mass symphony of distant car horns and soft conversations in street-side cafes, all fading into a backdrop as insignificant to their journey through time as they themselves had become over years apart, but not forgotten. As the cherry blossoms outside began petalizing with gentle whispers on Takumi's windowsill came Yuri's hesitant question, breaking the silence between them like a key turning in an old lock, long untouched yet familiar to their fingertips. "What drew you back now after all these years?" Takumi let out his breath as if he were blowing away cobwebs from memories that had not been dusty but pristine. He looked into Yuri's eyes, a mirror reflecting the same warmth and depth of character they once knew, a reflection now tinted with age yet still recognizable underneath layers of life's experiences etched on her face like stories carved in stone that were never meant to be forgotten. "I found myself here," Takumi replied, his gaze drifting upwards toward the petals falling around them as if time itself wanted a piece of their story too. "It was not simply nostalgia, but something deeper, a realization I needed closure for parts unfinished in my past." The thought felt both foreign and rightful within him. He understood that sometimes, to move forward, we must look back with tender eyes, rather than closed fists holding on tightly just because. Yuri's expression softened as she nodded gently while Takumi continued, the room around them seemingly dissolving into nothing but their shared past and future untold. The mixtape lay forgotten for now between stacked books that smelled of dusty pages and old memories on his desk. "I always wondered what life would be like with you by my side once again," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight to move mountains, or at least this world divided by time zones in which their paths had never truly crossed for so long apart from each other as children and teenagers exploring every nook of Tokyo together. Takumi reached into his pocket where he'd kept an old photograph, one that seemed too significant to ever be lost or snapshot, taken on a day when they were both carefree dreamers under the cherry blossoms at Ueno Park during springtime in 1985. Yuri was dressed as if she'd stepped out of her mother's apron strings, wearing bright colors that seemed to dance with life itself. He returned it carefully between their hands and smiled tenderly through his eyes, her silent promise made all over again. "Let us not just walk, but live the dream we once had." The mixtape lay inert yet resonant as they stood by Takumi's window, its needle achingly still. They knew it no longer needed to play music from their youth, because what played between them was something much more profounder, melody of love and understanding that transcended the years apart into a song composed anew in each heartbeat as they shared this rediscovery together, one wherein every note represented not just remembrance, but also rebirth. Takumi took Yuri's hand once more, tracing her knuckles with his fingertips before drawing back to look into the skyline that seemed almost like a grand painting come alive outside, city's lights twinkling and blinking in time as if they were trying their very best impression of stars. "Do you believe we can still paint our own picture together?" he asked, his heart hoping against all reason for this bridge across years to remain unbroken before them once more. Yuri's smile was a gentle crescendo amid the city's symphony as she took Takumi's hand tighter in her grasp, a promise that echoed through time and space within their joined palms. "We can, for love is eternal. It just needs breathing life into its canvas to remain vibrant." As they continued walking down the memory-laden paths of Tokyo's past together under Takumi's roofer place that no longer felt like a maze, but rather an open door leading through time itself, there came moments when their laughter seemed as timelessly sweet as springtime cherry blossoms, as Takumi and Yuri continued their journey through Tokyo's harder place now familiar, as old friends tracing lines in shared memory on a map where each street was more than pavement. It was history underfoot. They paused for no other reason but the pull of another evening spent together. They found themselves standing before an aged wooden door slightly ajar. Its peeling paint and creaking hint had been silent witnesses to countless such reunions over decades past until now. Without speaking, Takumi reached out his hand as if guided by the invisible threads of their intertwined destinies, while Yuri mirrored him with equal determination, her touch soft yet laden with an urgency that spoke volumes in its silent reaffirmation between two souls. Together they pushed open the door to reveal a room cloaked in shadows but for one small window where moonlight pierced through and bathed them both in silvery hues, transforming their Caesaro-1 ease into something almost ethereal, as if time itself had paused within these four walls. Their eyes met over the relics of another era, faded photographs lining an old mantelpiece with sepia-toned memories and trinkets that seemed to hold tales just beyond reach, like a music box from Yuri's grandmother's time or Takumi's childhood train set, which had once filled him with endless wonder. Each object was not merely an artifact, but the keyhole through which they peered into lives lived and love lost, yet somehow always found again in their presence here, knowers if by some magic only preserved for those who dared to dream against time's relentless march forward. In this room that had been Takumi's family home before he left the city, as a young man full of hope and hesitance about his future with Yuri, they sat together in shared silence, broken occasionally by laughter like delicate glass on marble, their joy echoing off walls laden with dust but not indifference. They spoke little. Instead, hands traced over each other's skin as if reading Braille etched deep within their touches, and the air between them vibrated softly with unsaid words waiting to be birthed into existence, once more a testament that even when time had seemed a river they could not cross or walk along, love's current pulled steadily towards this moment in an unfathomable dance of fate. As the night deepened and shadows grew long on their shared walls, like fingers stretching across faces etched with life's joys and sorrows alike, Takumi led Yuri out into Tokyo's streets still bathed in twilight, where neon lights flickered to life one by one, as if waking from an electric slumber. The city seemed to beckon them forward like a siren song, calling forth the essence of their enduring bond and promise that though they had been apart for years beyond counted, here in this moment, amidst all things transient and ephemeral about life itself, something immutable between Takumi and Yuri remained unaltered by time. Their steps led them past the places where their shared histories danced together, the cafe they had first met under cherry blossoms in full bloom, now barren but still holding whispering secrets of years gone by, through narrow alleys that once held only echoes and fragments left behind after nights spent unraveling mysteries or laughing heartily until dawn. Each step taken was a note played on the strings of memory, towed for a duet crafted not just from shared experiences, but also woven with threads invisible to eyes yet palpable in souls, connecting two hearts that had traveled separate paths, only now finding themselves walking side by side again, as if there were no distance between them at all. As they approached the park where Yuri once proposed beneath a blinking cherry tree, an act so simple it seemed like folly to outsiders, yet one of such significance that every leaf, twig, and shadow still swayed with its history here on earth, as Takumi looked upon her expectantly. With gentle fingers pressed together in his palm, he offered the words spoken without a breath, take no whisper meant for only their ears. "I will give you my heart again." And when Yuri responded from beneath her own fingertips with an echo of equal promise that trembled through Takumi's veins like electricity reviving circuits long dormant, the first note rang out clear, a melody composed not just in their beating hearts, but also across time itself, a psalm where every beat was both remembrance and rebirth. As Takumi and Yuri stood beneath a now mature cherry tree in bloom, its petals as delicate as their fingers, intertwined before the very spot where once they had pledged themselves to each other underneath the same boughs, time seemed to have woven itself into that location like an unbreakable thread within a tapestry of shared moments and silent promises, with this one being no different in significance, even as it unfolded before them, noble souls reuniting at last after years apart. The park around the blossoming cherry tree was alive yet serene. Its usually bustling paths were quiet save for their footsteps echoing softly against each other and through time, a rhythm that somehow felt like homecoming to both of them. Takumi's gaze found solace in Yuri's eyes as he watched her heartbeat synchronizing with his own beneath the cherry tree they had once shared an intimate moment underneath it all those years ago, a memory imprinted deep within their beings that transcended mere words. "I will give you my heart again," Takumi said gently but firmly as he placed two fingers together in his palm and brought them to Yuri's lips. Their touch was electric yet tender, like the connection between a hummingbird's wings beating against each other, creating an invisible bond that resonated with their shared history. Yuri nodded slowly, her breath caught on Takumi's words as they lingered in the air around them just for those few seconds before she finally responded, her voice barely above a whisper but clear and resolute. "And I will give you my heart again." They looked at each other then, no longer mere reflections of memories or shared experiences, but alive with an understanding so profound that it seemed to imbue their very souls. The cherry tree's blossoms swayed gently in the evening breeze as Takumi and Yuri stood before them now. Its petals were vibrant against the backdrop of twilight's last kiss, a living testament to time passing yet moments frozen within. Together they had once watched these same flowers bloom there, love blossoming beneath those very branches that held echoes of laughter and promises made long ago between them as children playing in the park, where now stood their chance for reunion. As Takumi took Yuri's hand, his thumb caressed her skin with a loving touch while he spoke once more, a promise to cherish every memory they had shared together, yet also begin new ones that would become etched into history alongside them. "Let our next chapter be one of rediscovery and love reborn under the watchful eyes of these very blossoms, my heart's true home," with a sighing laughter like wind through leaves rustling in agreement, or perhaps just contentment for finally being heard after years apart. Yuri took Takumi's hand firmly yet gently. Her touch was warmth against his skin, and she looked up at him with wide-eyed wonder, a child again seeing the world as it should be, where love wasn't merely a concept learned but felt like water on thirsty lips. Together they began to walk through life's garden once more, Takumi leading Yuri around in circles, or perhaps spirals that led back towards their true north, an unbreakable bond of hearts intertwined, two souls walking hand in hand down a path paved with shared experiences and promises yet unfulfilled. The park had witnessed years before them come to life once more as they navigated through the twists and turns winding around this sacred place that held their history within its borders, cherry tree standing tall above them like an ancient sentinel, guardian of memories, both sweet and bitter, yet always returning time again for a renewed beginning. They were not just two people walking together anymore. They had become one entity moving forward as if there was no difference between Takumi or Yuri, separation, only unity within the shared experience that flowed like an unending river through their beating hearts, each pulse carrying whispers of a promise renewed under this very cherry tree. As evening descended upon them and stars began to twinkle above in silent approval, Takumi and Yuri knew they had come home to the place where time seemed irrelevant between two souls meant for one another, woven together by shared histories, yet also standing before each other as if born anew. The cherry tree bore witness once more to their love like a living monument within this ancient park that held secrets and stories from generations. The cherry tree stood there still, lifelike in its grandeur, as Takumi traced his fingertip over a scarlet blossom and then pressed it against Yuri's cheek, the warmth of her skin melding with his own like watercolors on parchment. He whispered into ear that had become part of him since childhood about their shared history, a tapestry rich in colors both dark and light, where laughter intertwined with tear-stained kisses, dreams spun together under the silvery moonlight as they promised to be each other's forever. Yuri's hand found Takumi's arm beneath her own, their fingers entangling like roots in fertile soil, a reminder of growth and strength born from shared experiences that had been both a crucible for pain and the very alloy by which they tempered resilience into something unbreakable. As she looked up at him with eyes as deep blue as twilight skies, her own heartbeat echoed through his chest. It was an affirmation of love that resonated in their intertwined fingers, a rhythm only two people could beat together so perfectly and naturally. A cool breeze danced between them like a gentle reminder from the universe itself, stirring leaves into motion as if to frame this sacred moment with its own artistry. Takumi caught Yuri's gaze in his eyes, her mirror reflecting back at him not just her visage but every fiber of their being. They were one entity now, two souls fused by the fire that had burned within them throughout years, seasons, and countless moonlit promises given beneath this very tree's ancient boughs, which held memories etched into its rings as surely as they lived in each other's hearts, or living monument to their enduring love. The night seemed a canvas where time painted strokes of continuity. The cherry blossoms that adorned this old tree whispered with every petal-laden gust, and Takumi found himself reciting promises he had made long ago under its shader litany of vows to love without end. Yuri's lips curved in a tender smile as she listened. Together they spoke words that held the weight of ages, yet were fresh with meaning for them alone. Our journey has been winding and wild, but here beneath these branches we find our still point or calm sea where hearts can sail without fear. And so it was there by this ancient tree side under a sky filled with constellations that had guided souls before their own across oceans of time. Takumi reached out and clasped Yuri's hand, feeling the pulse beneath his fingertips like echoes from another world, or testament to love transcending all boundaries, even as it was rooted in this singular place on earth where they were together now, each heartbeat a drumroll heralding their union. As evening's cloak drew ever closer, the park's natural beauty seemed amplified by an ethereal glow that enveloped Takumi and Yuri like warmth from within a shared energy born of love itself, as they lay intertwined upon this hallowed ground where history had its pulse. The cherry tree bore witness once more, standing sentinel over their renewed promise. The whispers in the wind were now soft murmurs laced with hope and anticipation for a future that seemed already written into one another's souls, a story of togetherness unfurling beneath its outstretched limbs. In this sacred space, Takumi and Yuri knew they had come home to each other. In the ancient park's heart, where time was irrelevant between two beings met for only one another, stood a love as timeless yet uniquely their own, a bond that flowed through them like an unending river, without words, without need of phrases or sentences crafted by human tongues. They shared in the understanding born from years spent navigating this dance with life. As twilight deepened into night and stars began to punctuate the sky above Takumi and Yuri's beloved park, their intertwined bodies lay serenely amidst a bed of fallen cherry blossom petals as soft and delicate as time itself. The echoes from years past whispered between them in hushed tones. Stories that only the ancient trees could truly understand were shared with each other through rustling leaves, carrying hopes for tomorrow's adventures just beyond their reach yet to come. The cherry tree had always been a silent observer of countless human emotions. Love, at first sight here in its shade, now seemed like an eternal truth, as two hearts beat against the fabric woven from shared moments, dreams interlaced with laughter and tears that only deepened their connection. Yuri traced Takumi's jawline gently. Every touch was deliberate yet tender, a language of love beyond words, where each gesture spoke volumes more than what could be contained within the fragility of spoken phrases or even heartfelt letters penned under moonlit skies many times before. Above them, a crescent moon's faint, light-painted shadows that danced playfully upon their intertwined forms, an ethereal ballet choreographed by the night itself, as if Takumi and Yuri were meant for this moment of silent communion beneath its glowing presence. The cool breeze carried with it a symphony of nocturnal whispers, but those who heard them knew to tune into something deeper, a resonance that transcended mere sounds. Feelings as old as the park and just as enduring were shared between two souls in love's tender embrace. Their breath mingled like vapors on a summer's night, cool against warm skin, while Takumi rested his head upon Yuri's shoulder, a comfort that only such depth of understanding could provide, without utterance or expectation for reciprocity beyond the heartbeat syncopation. The cherry tree stood sentinel around them once more, as if it too held its breath in reverence to this sacred moment, when time seemed irrelevant between two entities meant for one another alone, where love was not just an emotion, but a living entity that flowed through their veins like the unending river they had become. As Takumi reached out and brushed his fingers over Yuri's cheek, he felt as if he could sense each beat of her heart, her symphony played by nature itself, with only them in attendance at this grand ballroom set upon earthly ground, where every corner held memories woven into its very essence. They shared a gaze that spoke volumes more than words ever could. Eyes were windows to souls intertwined, and the understanding between two beings meant for one another alone shone clear as daybreak on their faces, alight with love's unwavering flamer, light no darkness nor passing of years would dare quench. The night was alive, pulsing with energies that transcended simple existence. It wrapped around Takumi and Yuri like an embrace from ancestors who had whispered tales in the wind long before them as they lay together upon this sacred ground where their love's story continued to unfold beneath its outstretched limbs. There, amidst cherished memories engraved into every stone pathway of history and each leaf that fluttered downward from above a promise renewed with the passing seasons, was silently etched once again upon this timeless canvas where Takumi's heart beat strongest for Yuri's embrace. As they lay together, time became an irrelevant concept between two beings meant only to share one another. A love as enduring and unique had woven itself into the very fabric of their souls like threads through needlework that adorned ancient tapestries held within this park sacred walls, their story flowing effortlessly from past to present, with no beginning or ending in sight. It was here, underneath an old cherry tree, whose roots had felt countless lovers come and go before them, but found solace only when their paths intertwined like the very essence of Takumi's fingers laced through Yuri's hair, a bond that transcended mere mortality to become as timeless yet intimately personal, uniquely between two beings meant for one another alone. The night whispered secrets into their ears. Tales told by wind and water ripples spoke of journeys they had shared together before this moment, their love not just an emotion, but a living entity that flowed through them like the unending river, carving canyons within hearts too vast for in Chapter 27 of their shared journey beneath that ancient cherry tree's protective embrace. Takumi and Yuri reveled in a love as enduring as time itself, her tale woven through generations within this very park where they now lay entwined. The night air carried the scent of history. It was dusk when their shared breath mingled with that of countless lovers who had come before them, adding another whisper to a never-ending chorus of passion and unity echoed through ages past within these sacred walls. The cherry tree stood as an eternal witness. Its blossoms, once unfurling under the caress of spring suns, now offered their petals in gentle surrender at its base, each one falling like a soft sigh to mingle with Takumi's and Yuri's own tender hearts. The two lovers found solace within this continuum. As they lay together beneath it, memories painted themselves upon the canvas of time, their love story an unbroken thread stretched across centuries, a lineage etched not just in their souls, but also captured by silent observers like Takumi and Yuri. The tree's branches swayed slowly overhead as if to cradle them both within its embrace. The leaves rustled tales of past encounters that found refuge among these bough-stales, where love, much like their own, transcended mortality's fleeting grasp. The cherry tree had been there when samurais sought shelter and poets penned verses inspired by its blooming cycles. It stood sentinel as emperors declared peace in times of turmoil, providing sanctuary to those who found themselves lost between the ages, yet always returning or constant amidst ever-changing tides. As their love blossomed like the cherry tree's own flowers that adorned its limbs each year without fail or end in sight, Takumi and Yuri discovered an unspoken understanding of permanence within impermanence. They were but two people against a world where nothing remained static for long. Yet here they found themselves towed for a steadfastness not born from necessity, but born purely out of the need to be understood by another soul that mirrored their own essence so perfectly it seemed as though fate itself had conspired in their union. Their whispers grew soft and intimate, a conversation where words were less important than shared glances and touches, gentle brush of Takumi's fingers through Yuri's hair, serving not just to tangle but also weave the very strands of destiny as they had come together. Their connection was palpable even in stillness, a silent dialogue where heartbeats synchronized with nature itself, each pulse resonating within their being and reinforcing that this love-ized singular bond between them both alone upon earth was not just possible but necessary for the balance of life's grand tapestry. The night sky bore witness to countless stars, yet Takumi felt as if they were beneath one special luminary, its light filtering through leaves, casting a glow that seemed almost ethereal in comparison, a beacon guiding their hearts together across realms and time alike. The park had become for them not just an outdoor sanctuary, but also the hallowed ground where destiny fulfilled itself, as if each leaf falling from above was both witness to history repeating its most sacred patterns, while simultaneously scripting new ones upon this eternal canvas of existence, their story that would continue long after Takumi and Yuri's footsteps had ceased beneath the cherry tree's protective shadow. For in their union they found not just love but a one where two souls were forever intertwined like roots within fertile soil, or as threads through needlework that adorned ancient tapestries held within this park's sacred walls, their story flowing effortlessly from past to present with no beginning and end in sight. As they lay together, the night whispered secrets into their ears. Tales told by wind and water ripples spoke of journeys shared before them, but never once felt incomplete or transient within this everlasting moment where time itself dissolved under a sky awash with stars that watched over lovers like Takumi and Yuri. The cherry tree stood resolute as guardians to their love, its existence intertwined so deeply in the history of countless others who had sought refuge beneath similar boughs, its presence an unwavering testament to enduring connections that transcended time's relentless march. Takumi and Yuri understood now more than ever. They were not just two individuals sharing a single chapter within life, as Takumi and Yuri nestled closer beneath the cherry tree's tender embrace within its secret garden terre clandestine, lover's haven where time seemed to hold no dominion. Only whispers of eternity or gentle breeze stirred through their entwined fingers. The night air carried on a cool caress as the cherry blossoms fluttered like delicate pink feathers around them, crafting an ethereal blanket that shielded two hearts beating in synchronous harmony against any storm of fate life might hurl at them. Their union was no mere coincidence. It bore the weight and whispers of generations before their own lineage steeped within these sacred confines, where lovers had sought solace under similar branches for centuries untold. The cherry tree itself held a mystical presence in this park's lore, as if its roots delved not just into the soil, but also deep into human desires to find and be found amidst love's tender complexities, or living monument of resilience, where every petal fell like an echoed promise, renewing itself within their shared breaths. Takumi and Yuri exchanged vows, spoken softly between the rustling leaves, a pledge to cherish each other as faithfully as spring nurtures summer's bloom, to live out this chapter with every fiber of being until life's final curtain call. And in that solemn oath they found strength and solace against any tempestuous sea their lives might traverse beyond these hallowed grounds. As the night deepened its velvety shroud around them, a lone owl's hoots provided an ancient soundtrack to two souls interlocked within time's embracer, testament that though individual hearts beat in fleeting moments across history, their love story was etched into this very place. The cherry tree stood as silent witness and guardian of the covenant formed beneath its boughs, a bastion for those whose passion burned so bright it threatened to consume them if not sheltered within these arboreal arms. Takumi traced Yuri's cheek with tentative fingers, each touch an intimate whisper against her skinner, tender acknowledgement that in their unity lay both vulnerability and invincibility, as they faced the uncertain morrow together or apart. The cherry blossoms seemed to dance around them like sentient beings of joyous celebration for this union's sacredness, even as night's shadows began to lengthen with a promise of dawn soon to follow, or cycle reaffirming that love endures beyond the horizon where sun and moon reign. Yuri wrapped her arms around Takumi in an impromptu sylvan hug. Their embrace was one forged from warmth, not merely skin, but spirit, as well, an indestructible bond like roots intertwining through fertile earth to anchor life against the howling winds of adversity. The park itself had become a haven where time's relentless march slowed into an amber-hued lullaby that summed directly upon their souls, offering respite from worldly tumult and encouraging them toward tomorrow's unseen adventures in lover's sacred pilgrimage beneath the cherry tree. Within this cocoon of twilight reverie, where history seemed to seek through every sinew and cellular memory, Takumi and Yuri recognized that they were not simply two individuals sharing a moment, but rather threads woven into an eternal tapestry, a shared narrative within the park's heart. They had found their story in each other's eyes, reflections of dreams once lived by ancestors who too sought refuge beneath these very boughs, as if love itself was encoded on this canvas where cherry blossoms held dominion over time and space with every petal that cascaded to the ground. Their laughter mingled within stolen glances across moon-dappled grass, or symphony of joy resonating through generations, echoed in their shared amusement as they playfully jostled for position under a cherished blossom's canopy. It was an enchantment only love could weave, where the past and present were but one continuous thread intertwining with such delicate intricacy that even time itself seemed to pause in reverence of this union or moment when history felt alive beneath their feet, pulsing from rooted ground up through towering boughs. As they lay side by side under the cherry tree's protective shroud,